Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question comes to us from the True Stories collection via viewer Original Ganker. Amy taps a Futurist Operative in order to crew her Mindlink Mech. After the triggered ability resolves, what will Mindlink Mech's characteristics be? The first thing that we're going to need to answer this question is going to be this fact about how copy effects work. They do not take into account any continuous effects that are acting on the thing that you're copying. So that would mean that we do not need to look at the Futurist Operative's state, whether it's tapped or untapped, in order to decide what the characteristics of the Mindlink Mech are going to be. That's because we're not going to copy the continuous effect acting on the operative that makes it a 1-1 citizen. Basically, you can think of it this way. We're just going to take that Futurist Operative to a copy machine and then hit the copy button. Whatever it spits out, that's what we're going to paste directly on top of the Mindlink Mech. So after the copy ability is going to apply to the Mindlink Mech, its characteristics are going to look something sort of like this. Actually, that's not 100% correct. You see, if we bring back the original text for the Mindlink Mech for a second, we can see that its copy effect is worded kind of unusually. You can see that after it says what we're copying, there's all these extra riders on there that try to modify that. We call these modifications to the copying process, and they apply at the same time, indeed as part of the copy effect. So if we were going to continue that analogy that I said before about the copy machine, what we're doing here is probably more like making a copy of the Futurist Operative on the copy machine and then using a Sharpie to edit out anything so that we're going to have the characteristics that the Mindlink Mech wants, and then afterwards we're going to paste that on top of the Mindlink Mech. So indeed, after the copy effect applies, we're going to actually see Mindlink Mech's characteristics are going to look something more like this. Alright, so copy effects are the first type of continuous effects to apply. Are there any other continuous effects that are acting on Mindlink Mech? And in fact there is. There's one from the crew ability that makes it into an artifact creature. Fortunately for us, that's all the crew ability does, and since we're already an artifact creature, that crew ability isn't going to really do anything. Some people think that the crew ability also sets the power and toughness via a continuous effect, but that's actually not how it works. Vehicles all have the power and toughness printed on the actual card, so there's no need for the crew ability to set an extra power and toughness up for them. Accordingly, there's nothing in the comprehensive rules definition for crew that says anything about setting a power and toughness. And I guess even if that were the case, then we wouldn't have anything happening in this specific situation since, again, the Mindlink Mech is already a 4-3. Alright, and so with that sorted out, that is indeed the final set of characteristics that you're going to see when you look at the Mindlink Mech. Now, let's take a look at something else that's, I'm sure, on everybody's mind. Okay, so that would be the case if we had the Mindlink Mech staying untapped. However, what would happen if we tapped it? What would its characteristics look like then? And okay, let's take a look at that situation too. In this case, we have all of the same continuous effects acting on Mindlink Mech as what we had in the previous scenario. There's just one extra one added in there, which is the one that happens because it's tapped. So that continuous effect is going to be making it a 1-1, and it's also going to be making it a human citizen. Now, interestingly enough, the way that this is worded, it actually does not give an ability to Mindlink Mech that makes it unblockable. Actually, what it does is it changes the game rules so that if you're trying to declare a set of blockers, it's not legal for you to declare blockers that are blocking the Mindlink Mech. So it's kind of weird the way that works, but it's not adding an ability to it, it's just saying something that's true about it. This doesn't really affect the answer too much other than the fact that we aren't going to be adding any abilities to the Mindlink Mech in layer 6, which is when we normally might expect to put that on there. Alright, so now let's take a look at how the continuous effects are going to progress. And remember what we said before, how the continuous effects that are making the Mindlink Mech into a vehicle and making it a 4-3 and giving it flying are all modifications to the copy process, and as such they apply in the copy layer, which is the first layer of continuous effects that applies. So after that copy layer, we're still going to see the exact same type of characteristics as what we saw in the previous scenario. The next step is we're going to move on to the type, subtype, and supertype changing effects that happen in layer 4. Again, it's already an artifact creature, so the continuous effect from the crew that is making it an artifact creature isn't really going to do anything. However, we also have another type, subtype, or supertype changing effect in this case, which is the one that makes it into a human citizen. So that's going to take effect, and our Mindlink Mech is going to have its creature types changed. Changing the creature types does not change any of the other types, so it stays being a vehicle. that does not get overwritten the way that Ninja does. Alright, there's no ability adding and removing that happens in layer 6 because, again, the flying comes from the copy effect, and the can't be blocked is not actually an ability that the Mindlink Mech has, it's just something that's true about the Mindlink Mech. So finally we move on to the last layer, layer 7, which is where the power and toughness setting effects happen. Remember again, it's a 4-3 already because of how the copy effect worked, and so therefore it's going to end up being a 1-1 because that effect is going to take place here, and it's going to be the last effect that modifies the power and toughness of Mindlink Mech. So these are the final characteristics of Mindlink Mech that you're going to see if it's tapped. Phew, that was a lot of continuous effects and a lot of moving parts for an interaction that only had 2 cards. Considering that they're both in the same standard set, and both even in the same color, gives me goosebumps because I know for a fact I'm going to get to explain this one to some players going forward. Hopefully you were able to understand all of that, and you would feel confident explaining it to someone if it was coming up in a game that you were involved in. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.